Okay, so today we are going to introduce development architecture for a web tier perspective from the architecture perspective. What kind of strategy or concern we need to think about um, uh, in order to avoid some problem or whatever the case. Sometimes we need to make a decision. So what's the main things today we are going to we are going to describe following things. So first of all, we need to also mention what kind of development role they will be follow on. No. Mm, Then we also needed to discuss separation of concern SOS SOC. Describe strategy for the presentation of concern of web tier. Describe strategy of implementing the data concern of web tier. Describe the strategy of managing the presentation data logic related concern of web tier. Uh, Also, uh, advantage decentralized request component oriented web tier framework. Of course, we need to compare. We also mention other popular type of framework, which is especially mentioned in Java. Of course, the other usually it's open source, a little bit huge resource in the Java. So that's the reason. Describe strategy for implementing the authorization authentication for web tier. Then also um, address concern of the scaling web application. So 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 um, responsible to web tier actually following things. So it is needed to manage session and the stateful entity. You know that in the web there are stateless, so that's the reason you need to manage session, because sometimes we need you to cluster. Why you cluster? It means it's more than two server, completely same content. So not only the page or class or whatever the service you needed to same, but also you needed to distinguish between the request to request. So that's the reason you need to manage the session and useless. So then also the delegating service request to business tier between the, if you remember the MVC, there's a between the controller there as a backend, and but sometimes then even they divide in the business layer, which is we will be describe explain in the next lesson. But probably, so it means the main thing is they have a loose coupled integration. So in order to increase the flexibility, or you can say maintainability um, in the future development. Then also dispatching the presentation of web client there. I mean, dispatching it is how they can redirect from one page to another, or maybe that's need to decision by the dispatcher. I mean, usually controller. Managing access to content. I mean, that's a resource which is, if you even you can log in it after, then you need to authorize to access it. Managing resource to secure concern. We need to talk about that. So without further wait, I mean, actually there's a three different kind of role. I mean, as similar as in the previous lesson, and when we clean our application, as we discussed it, then there's web designer. I mean, web developer. I mean, web designer just focused on the visual part, include a picture and whatever, and then CSS, HTML. But web developers not only the, I mean, presenting, but also they have as a take the whole part of the integration role. And then in terms of information architecture, they take care of the whole vision. So and then how they also take care of the providing the framework or choosing the framework. um, that one thing that we needed to concern, SOC, a separation of concern. It's very, I mean, usual way to all the time use it. I mean, this basic idea is how we can separate it, how we can, uh, each, I mean, different part of the rule can separate it. For example, logic can separate it, data can separate, style is there to visuals but separated. It means you can able to easily to apply this work in the different perspective to this. For example, view part styles can be only professional designer can do it. Then data, they will be carried out the data manager, whatever the database, DBMA, administrator, and then business logic, participating with the business user logic, even they didn't know the technique, so they will be participated. Then at the same time, it is not only the perspective, it is easier to maintainability hold the project. Same time, it is increasing the control the I mean architecture of the integration uh, perspective. So it is kind of encouraging the encouraging the people to thinking from the separate all the concern and separation concern. So it should be that those kind of advantage which is mentioned right now. And then also while using you viewing the templating, it means, what does templating? It means something you can reuse, something you can follow on, something big template can be produce more work, or they say increase the productivity. So that there's a two-way. One is the inclusion, another transclusion. What's inclusion is actually is kind of some a little bit big part of the page, so they can trying to reuse it, but it's not completely whole page. But that's the reason they use an inclusion. For example, they include it in the level of the page level, and then compared to transclusion, that a little bit a small part, but it is more flexible way, because they trying to uh, control in the each of the element of in the HTML level. For example, in the div level, or span level, or some kind of one portion of the in the web page, they can they trying to make it dynamically provide this components, so it should be easier to programmatic way to control it. So it is a one that this is inclusion can be accomplished in the web designer, but it is a transclusion. It's usually complete by a web application developer. Example that inclusion is just like that. I mean, it is a content GSP, it is a navigation GSP, it is finally they will be actually in the runtime they generate this one view in the in gray part. So what's a content GSPs? They directly include navigation GSP. So what's navigation GSPs? They actually included two URL. So that's the kind of inclusion that for example, in the navigation, maybe you can in the future, you right now it's too simple, but in the future you can upgrade it, so it is simply just updated one page, simple, only one. This is very useful. Which is um, not copy paste in the 100 page on the 1,000 page. You just update one page. It's very useful. And another thing is conclusion, that is in the other aspect, that a programmatic way to control it. It's now that's where all of them is very simple. For example, the body GSP is just included uh, two element H2 and the P include one content statement, two statement. Another that the request page, request page, which is that you want to access it, they included, spend template. And then it's just layout that included what kind of actually they included own tile. For example, span insert title, and then also there's another span insert body. What they have as a template, they included, they give the as a parameter name as title, they give the hello world, then also body give this another GSP name, which is on a page of the name. So what they can do it is they generated exactly same result that one, but should be different way. So it is second one is a more you can more programmatic way to control it. Okay, and then from the view composition, not only two of the classical way, not only the two of them, but also there is some kind of standardization, industry standardization, way to provide it. For example, that Percolate is one way to horizontally integrate of not only the view part, also integrate from the um, data model also being integrated. So it is being called a Percolate. It's a Percolate that uh, that easily can be included and the one in one very simple unit, or you can even you can integrate one grade table. It's also possible whatever the things, it's possible to you can integrate your system from the different uh, different multi data source. So it's very important. For example, that you have a different sub company, but you just only have a one internet domain. Then also must be you have a several data source, several database. Then it's coming from the, but actually it's part of one company of the business process. So that's when you're trying to get this runtime, real-time information up to date. So it is better to most company use the Portalate, by the way. And then also there's another way that actually uh, get benefit from the framework. What is usually the what's development majority was using providing the view component that it's actually is very dependent of the technique. It's not flexible, but it's also very complex product for the specific company. Um, so they required a little bit also a little bit downside that you have to those kind of those drawback. uh, but it is should be a perspective that they trying to very similar desktop user interface, swing based generation framework, all of them they trying to get advantage of the and the history or current stage of all user experience, and moving to web page, moving to website, to they will be easier to accomplish. But the downside is you have to pay the cost of the learning. Engineers should be learn it, they have to be know it, the specific technique. For example, they want to use the maybe using the um, using the Python to uh, create the web application is fine, but it's not satisfied for using some specific kind of web component. So it is downside. And then it's another perspective. It's very important that in the when you creating the when you participating in the process of the development in the website, web tire application, it is previewable for web designers very important because it is a it's usually the data should be coming from the server. Usually most components should be while deployed it in the server should be cancelable. But it's not the good way to doing the design. So they expect that the components should be pre-removable. It's very important. Uh, Not only just only cancelable in the runtime. It's not the productive way. So most time designer expect my swimming style. It's what you say, what you get as style of the editor should be is good. But those things, if they provide it and during the a specific technique for a specific uh, component while you develop that, it is sometimes it's not easy choice. And then another perspective that this script language, that the PHP, such kind of PHP language very popular because of the script language. They has a lot of advantage that it's which is what you see, what you get. It's directly translating the result. It's pretty quickly. So it is a also then not only that, there's also very another kind of different functionality or feature they has but without in the object-oriented programming such in the Java. So they tended to integrate each other. For example, Java tended to want to use get advantage of the script language. So, for example, it is possible to use. For example, JavaFX. For example, usually that's that script language provided in the Flash. Uh, Flash is using the UI part, and then Gurvy and the GRabi and the GPython is trying to use a different kind of language, trying to leverage the functionality integrated in the another language. So, for example, GPython is Python language can running in the GVM. In Java runtime. So it means in the Python you can call it in Java class or of the one method. So something very useful, if something very easier to complete in the one language and not very hard to create in another. At that time you need to integrate. That's the one things you need to remember. And session is very critical and very important in the web development, because it's HTTP protocol is stateless. So it means each URL you don't know who is coming to request in the server. So that's the reason a server have to know what kind of response should be returned back. So you have to distinguish the each URL. But in order to distinguish each request, you need the one way to use, you can use clean sign, some technique, for example, cookie, but cookies never been guaranteed that some user will be give the permission to access it. So it's not the good choice. So that's the reason most it's general public choices that universal choices that you can take into URL, uh, embed it in the URL session ID. So back into server, so we can embed it together. So it's a one solution. Then another that is you have to manage the session because of the while you can cluster. So we will be mentioned later on for that case. In turn that because of you need to interact the user. So it's a that this is a validation is very important. So each in order to productivity, sometimes you have to using some framework, but you need to think about following things should be provided by validation framework. First is they if as much as as much as good resource provided by infrastructure validator, it's good. So it means you needed to write less validation, but mostly they already provide by infrastructure. So it means immediately your productivity increases. So then also is in order to you trying to using just right the configuration to provide the validation also is good, because you know that when you configure it, it means you can easily to uh, change or easier to review the what you're doing. So it is very good. Ability to customize, it's just like that. I mean, in order you can while you creating product, it means you trying to sell one product to many customer. So that's a, you need to customize it. It's a better way to success while you promoting your product. And then also they expected the local remote service-based provider. So you also need to think about that. And then one that very special is JavaScript validator is while you have a um, Ajax functionality. When you have Ajax functionality without you to refreshing the page, they will be checking the data. That's very user friendly or performance, very good balanced performance they provided. So it's very good user experience if you provide such kind of validation. So it's mostly will come to from user. Of course, internationalization and localization is very important while you're doing the product. I mean, if you just come doing the project, maybe it's not the case for your intended to. But if you're doing the product, it means you want to selling the not only one customer. It does not customer maybe 100 or 1,000. Then you need to think about how you can separate it from the language resource from your code perspective. So if you are concerning the internationalism productive functionality from the stage of the when you completing the or partially completing product, it's too late to concerning because while you're creating the resource, mostly they integrate very closely integrated the content. It's not um, easier to separatable. So while you concerning in the and in architecture stage, it's a many way to avoid this repeatable or meaningful risk you needed to take it. So there is a solution that, of course, you have to use is trying to separate the resource from the language, so it is good. Another that the localization that you can even you how give a little bit intelligence your application to how to distinguish your potential customer language, then you can automatically provide a preferred language. It is good. Uh, for example, while you some of the user uh, when you're accessing, you know that where's the request is coming. For example, if they're accessing from the Russia uh, continent, so you have to better to automatically provide that the Russian language without needing to let you choose one language, then access it. Even they can, so it means basically from the request, actually server know what kind of request the request coming from which country. Basically they know the so if they know the country, it means they can easily to provide this language. But at the same time they can so it's kind of provide a good user experience. So what that means is they also can manually change it, but things that if somebody who didn't know the, for example, Mandarin is Chinese. Actually, Mandarin it means Chinese language, but if they know didn't know the Mandarin, it means of the Chinese. So it's they confused how you can clink change from the English to the specific language. So it should be better to I mean find the potential client for you. So it's a very good choice, intelligent choice or predictive choice. And that's things that from the browser they and the first type accept language. For this case the German language is the first preference and then English is second preference, so it means both can be language. They give up first priority for German language while you showing your resource. Uh, s- so there is a recommendation for strategy for internalization and the localization. So what they recommended is while initializing, and they try give them enumerate attribute to bundle the resource. So it means at that case you can doing the initialize. So do some kind of intelligence work to support the localization. Then also they will be accessed a specific language resource. Then also retrieved all the error message using the resource bundle. It means keep consistent not only not only the viewable content, also some kind of occasional information also provided by the friendly bundled to your language. For example, while you accessing the web, reach the German language, while you give a kind of alert information or error information come out, if you provided English, it's not the good product implemented by you or your teams. So it's very good to then separate this language content. That is what are you can put this in the database, and then also it can possible to put in the file system. But one things that if you put in database, it is searchable. It is searchable, and then they can provide a fast access mechanism. Then also provided polymorphism to handle language specific data entity. It means so while you trying to get intelligently trying to get access, it means which language you need to prefer you needed access. At the same time, while sometimes you need a little bit bigger, data needed to access. For example, metadata, you have to while you maintain the metadata, you have to follow things. Keep your member have to has a unique document ID, brief description, keyword keyword have to be included, and then authors, creation, last modified, and location of the content you need to specify. So it should be potential discover your content is better to provide service. It's very useful. Searchable, as we said of it, if you sometimes when you're doing the re-architect, doing the providing the new version of your system, maybe you it is accidentally remove some links, so some content, it's not find by direction of the menu. So it's most user want to they it is a very useful quick way to using the uh, search search site to find your find the content. So it is a good search tools provided by your site or system. Also been indexed is provide indexes, so it's a good way to increase in performance. So searchable is also needed to tend to provide it. Of course, you also need to think about your content provided by what kind of language also. And then also while you of course as we talk about, we of course we using the architecture, it is a classical architecture MVC interact between each of the aspect model between the model to view, of course reach the controller several time. This is a little bit classical, it means not the new. There is a another things been adapted, that been improved, the new version that the control already been categorized or detailed of the three different control. For example, front controller, which is usually it is a mature mature view, and then view dispatcher actually is trying to what kind of service you want to access it. So it's mostly they trying to dispatch redirect located your service. Service dispatchers, Yeah, so that's a service dispatcher. Another is read dispatcher is just how you can find your exact what kind of page or component you want to view in the page. So between them, in order to loose couple the component, so it should be better to it's provide better maintainability, scalability architectures. That's the reason there's of course they added the business delegated. Business delegators of course directly accessories to the the main model. So it is a very a little bit advanced level of the MVC architecture. It is of course been introduced in the service to work pattern. By the way, uh, there is a while you're using the application, one term is filtering is mostly if you talk about this um, application server, especially web application server, they has a controller that mostly if you're talking about the Java EE, it's mostly controller is mostly servlet, and then filters it's another kind of filter dispatcher is another class. It's not the servlet, but what is they has a common things that they handled all kind of requests, but one thing is that filter can do. I mean, they can filter any kind of request before and after that accomplished they can able to check it, so they can through the request and the response information they can able to check. So you can one chance that you can able to provide the authorization authentication. Another is log information, and also it's possible to integrate other servers. So it is a very, good chance to using the filter to integrate some system. Webflow is another kind of things that you can provide a integration um, by the, from one page to another. If they using Webflow, using uh, by the your preferred way to design. So if they give the customized way to you, even you can runtime, you can do it. It is very, it's good things to increase your information. It's very popular web framework in the Java Enterprise Edition. May You might be familiar with the structures, GSF. I used it. Then I used Velocity, but Spring MVC I used it. But other that I didn't use it. But main thing is they have a similar MVC framework and a web framework, but it's but they have a different ability. One part is very a template is a functionality very good in Velocity, and then structures request is very good. GSF is a web component part, but it's not request based. So it's a kind of emphasize of the aspect is little bit different. So that's criteria when you choosing the framework. You needed to come out those preview,ability, testability, separation concept, approach, translation, configurable, third-party framework support. Expert does has complexity, learning curve, security. Those things you need to think about. Okay, so quickly introduce what's the request-oriented framework. That is, structures. So it is just focused on request. At each request, its kind of handle is each kind of function is mapped to one class. But in terms of the component base is completely different. It is not trying to directly. It's kind of reuse directly calling the class, not just kind of they avoid using controller, but they provide it very highly integrated. Even you don't necessarily to configure it, nothing. Um, it is a very highly cohesion. It is less code you need to write it. It's mostly a product of the each company provided. Just like the GSF. So it's a emphasized part is different. From the authorization authentication, it's very important. Uh, Authentication is happen first. Authorization is while you, if you know that authorization, when you successful it, then you can authorization. What is a authorization? Authentication is you have to provide who you have to identify who you are, and then no no who can do what. Authorization, who access what kind of resource. So mainly when you're using authentication, usually user and password is one type, encryption keys, I mean just kind of private key, something like this. And then token is another kind of voice recognition, iron, people scan, fingertip is also can be used to credential for authentication. And then authorization is based on URL. Of course, it's even uh, it should be doing while providing the deployment stage. For example, web.xml is actually can be provided in the Java technique. They can describe in the time. So who can access what kind of resource they can define it. And then this is one kind of framework Java provided, Java authorization authentication system. But one thing is they didn't provide it injection access, but this has been provided not very well, but it has been provided in the Spring security is very good. That's the reason Java JS not very popular, but it's other than it's very good. I mean, web clusters, another things that how you can cluster between the cluster that when things one things that how you can manage the session. So most important is in order to cluster, you need to store your session information from one server to another server. So one things that you have to one solution that you have to store in the database, even store in the file, but those information must be serializable. Otherwise, you cannot search. Then also, yeah. Load balancing is other hand is should be applicable, should be host standby. It means you can shut down any kind of one server without interacting accessing your final user. I mean they still has other server while you preparing the one first server, so you need to think about that. Yes, that's all of the content. um, I hope you all you are wake up. Are you here?
Yeah,